Welcome back to our next video on sustainable insurance. My name is Gregor Weiss, and I'm a professor of finance here at Leipzig University. So far, we've seen how insurers pool, price, and share catastrophe risk, an impressive machine. But that machine is under strain. This is Part C, the protection gap and the insurability crisis. In this video, we confront an uncomfortable question. What happens when climate risk grows so fast that insurance becomes unaffordable or simply disappears? And how does that ripple out into mortgages and banks? This is, in my view, the most important part of the whole chapter, because it's where sustainable insurance stops being a technical topic and becomes a social one. When insurance retreats, it's rarely the wealthy who are left exposed first. It's ordinary families whose single biggest asset is a home they can no longer protect. So keep the human stakes in mind as we work through the numbers and the research. Let's start by measuring the gap. Here are three numbers from the Swiss Re Institute's Sigma report for the year 2023, and they tell a stark story. In that year, natural catastrophes caused around $280 billion of total economic losses worldwide. Of that, only about $108 billion was insured, roughly 40%, which means that around 60% of catastrophe losses were uninsured. Let that sink in. For every dollar of insured catastrophe loss, there was another $1.50 sitting on the shoulders of households, businesses, and governments with no insurance behind it. That uninsured share is what we call the protection gap, and closing it is one of the central challenges of sustainable insurance. And here's why the gap is more than an accounting curiosity. When a loss is insured, the shock is absorbed by a diversified global system. Insurers, reinsurers, and capital market investors all share the blow. And the affected household or business is made whole quickly. When a loss is uninsured, that shock falls directly and entirely on the victim, and often on the government that has to step in afterward. So a large protection gap doesn't make the risk disappear. It just pushes it onto the people and public budgets least equipped to bear it. The gap is widest, unsurprisingly, exactly where it hurts most, in poorer countries and among lower-income households everywhere. Now here's the vicious circle that widens the gap. As losses rise, insurers must raise premiums to stay solvent. In the worst-hit areas, premiums rise so far that cover becomes unaffordable, and eventually, insurers stop offering it at all. This isn't hypothetical. In the United States, major insurers such as State Farm and Allstate have stopped writing new home policies in California, citing wildfire risk. The Florida market, battered by hurricanes, has been in open crisis. So we face a combined affordability and availability crisis. And there's a cruel twist to it. The people most exposed to climate hazards are often the least able to pay for cover. And it doesn't stop with the homeowner. An asset that can't be insured loses value and becomes much harder to finance, which is how the problem starts spilling over into mortgages and banks. That spillover is the thread running through the rest of this video. And notice the vicious feedback loop at work. Higher risk leads to higher premiums. Higher premiums push some customers to drop cover. A smaller, riskier pool of remaining customers then faces even higher premiums, and so on. Insurers call this an insurance death spiral, and it can hollow out a market surprisingly fast. The California and Florida cases are the warning signs the whole industry is watching, because the underlying driver, rising climate risk colliding with the price people can actually afford, is not unique to America. As we'll see later in this video, Germany is wrestling with a version of exactly the same problem. Let's ground this in serious research. This paper, When Insurers Exit, by Sastry, Sen, and Tenekedjieva from 2024, studies what actually happens when climate losses reshape insurance and mortgage markets in Florida. The findings are striking. As traditional, well-capitalized insurers retreat from the state, who fills the gap? Smaller, fragile, undercapitalized insurers, and these firms fail often with roughly a 20% insolvency rate. The authors then trace the consequences into the mortgage market. They estimate that about 25% of the expected mortgage losses of the government-sponsored enterprises, the government-sponsored enterprises. The GSEs, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, in Florida, stem from this insurer fragility. And the mechanism is direct. When an insurer goes insolvent after a disaster, households are left unprotected and mortgage defaults rise. This is a concrete climate to insurance to banking channel, exactly the kind of spillover regulators worry about. Let me underline why this result is so important and why it's heading for a top journal. For years, the comforting assumption was that insurance acts as a shock absorber. It takes climate damage and quietly neutralizes it, so the rest of the financial system need not worry. This paper shows the opposite can happen. When the insurance layer itself becomes fragile, it stops absorbing shocks and starts transmitting them, passing climate losses straight through to mortgage lenders and ultimately to the taxpayers who stand behind the GSEs. Insurance turns from a firewall into a fuse. That reframing insurance as a potential channel of financial contagion rather than a barrier against it is genuinely new, and it's why supervisors are paying such close attention. This chart visualizes the heart of that paper. It shows the share of Florida home insurance premiums written by these fragile, lightly monitored insurers. And you can see it surge after 2018. As the big names pulled back, this long tail of thinly capitalized firms rushed in to write the policies the majors no longer wanted. On paper, the homes were still insured. In reality, they were insured by companies far more likely to collapse the moment a serious hurricane arrived, which is precisely when the coverage is needed most. The quality of protection had quietly deteriorated, even where its quantity looked unchanged. And this is what makes the finding so unsettling for regulators. If you only counted how many homes carried insurance, Florida would look fine. Coverage rates held up. The danger was hidden in the fragility of who was providing that coverage. It's a reminder that in insurance, a policy is only as good as the company standing behind it. And a promise to pay after the next hurricane is worthless if the insurer making it is one storm away from collapse. Measuring the protection gap, in other words, isn't just about counting policies. It's about the quality of the promise behind them. A second paper by an overlapping team, Sen and Tenekedjieva, forthcoming in the Journal of Finance, asks why insurers can't simply raise prices to match rising risk. The answer lies in regulation. The US homeowners insurance market, worth roughly $15 trillion, is regulated state by state, and very differently in each. In tightly regulated states, insurers are not allowed to raise rates fast enough to keep pace with rising climate risk. So what do? They cross-subsidize. They raise rates in the less regulated states to make up the shortfall. The result is that prices and actual risks pull apart. Rates no longer reflect where the danger really is, and insurers increasingly exit the high regulation states altogether. It's a beautiful, if troubling, illustration of how well-intentioned price controls can distort the whole system. There's a genuine dilemma buried here, and it's worth sitting with. Regulators cap insurance rates for a good reason, to protect households from sudden, brutal price hikes they can't afford. But if the true risk really has risen, then holding prices down doesn't make the risk go away. It just forces someone else to pay for it, whether that's policyholders in other states, or the insurer's capital, or eventually the taxpayer when the insurer fails. This is the same hard truth we keep hitting in this chapter. You can suppress the price signal of climate risk, but you cannot suppress the risk itself. Sooner or later, the bill arrives. This chart captures that mechanism in one picture. The more regulation there is in a state, the slower the approval of rate changes. Insurers ask to raise premiums. Regulators take longer to say yes or say no. That regulatory friction is the engine behind the cross-subsidies we just discussed. When you can't price risk correctly in one place, you either leave or you quietly overcharge somewhere else. Neither outcome is good for a healthy, sustainable insurance market. Let's connect all these threads into a single chain, because this is the big picture takeaway of Part C. Insurance is the hinge between climate risk and the housing and mortgage markets. Follow the logic. The hinge between climate risk and the housing and mortgage markets. Follow the logic. As premiums rise or cover is withdrawn, property values fall and rents rise. Because lenders require insurance as a condition of a mortgage, buyers who can't get cover are denied loans, or if they do borrow, their default risk climbs, and the losses then spill from insurers to banks, to the mortgage GSEs, and even to local government tax bases as property values erode. So we get a full transmission chain, from climate to insurance to real estate to banking. A home that becomes uninsurable can quickly become unsellable, and that is how a physical risk turns into a financial system risk. And there's a slow-motion danger hidden in this chain. It can stay invisible right up until it isn't. As long as the weather is calm and insurers keep renewing policies, prices hold and the mortgages look sound. The vulnerability only reveals itself when a major event forces insurers to reprice or withdraw. And then values, credit, and public finances can move together quickly in the same direction. That's precisely the pattern that worries financial stability regulators, and it's a theme we'll return to in Part 11 on financial stability and the regulatory context. Let's recap this video. The protection gap is large. In 2023, around 60% of catastrophe losses were uninsured. Climate risk is pushing some markets toward uninsurability as majors exit California and Florida. Rigorous research shows the consequences. Fragile insurers rush in and fail, regulation distorts pricing across states, and insurer failure feeds straight into mortgage defaults. And the whole thing links up into a chain from uninsurable to unsellable, climate to insurance to real estate to banking. In the next video, we look harder at that housing link. Do house prices actually reflect climate risk? And then we turn to two more risks insurers face: transition risk and liability risk. See you there.